It's been 10 years since East Timor voted in favor of independence from Indonesia. The referendum was marked by violence as pro-Indonesian militia went on a rampage, supported by the Indonesian military. Hundreds were killed and little has been done to punish the perpetrators. Today, East Timor's leaders want to bury the past and focus on the nation's political and economic development. But victims of the 1999 violence say justice must first be done before the nation can move forward. I'm Fauzia Ibrahim. This week on 101 East, we speak with President Jose Ramos-Horta about the challenges East Timor faces when reconciling with its past. But first, we travel across the country to find out just how this nation has been affected by its violent history. East Timor, a young nation full of hope, a developing country seeking a bright future. Its people are friendly, proud, and most of all, free. It was a different picture 10 years ago. The violence surrounding the referendum tore the country apart. Pro-Indonesian militia attacked and intimidated those who opposed the occupying force. More than 1,000 were killed, hundreds of thousands were displaced. The United Nations compound was among the many places Timorese sought refuge. Others, like Nonato Suarez, ran to the local parish to escape the rampage, but there was no sanctuary to be found at the Dili diocese.
I came here with 14 members of my family. This was the room we were in. There were hundreds of others in the other rooms. At exactly 3 p.m., the militia came and shot at the windows and broke the glass. They warned us to get out of the building because they wanted to burn it down, so we surrendered to them. They stabbed me here and made me walk to the street. My family was crying. There were so many people all around, dead or injured. I looked down and saw I was badly injured. I collapsed.
Nonato survived the attack but lost several family members. He says the 1999 violence was the culmination of Indonesia's brutal years of occupation.
Indonesia should at least apologize for the atrocities in Timor-Leste. Until today, they still have not said anything. That's why we victims are still angry with them. I know the perpetrators may not be brought to justice, but Indonesia should at least recognize and apologize for the crimes of the past.
Nonato is not alone in demanding justice be served. Soon after independence, a few Timorese perpetrators and low-level Indonesian officials were tried in court. Most were released or served little time in jail. Some East Timorese are calling for an international court of justice to try those guilty of committing crimes during the occupation and the referendum.
Our government wants good relations with Indonesia, so they are reluctant to push for an international tribunal. But the tribunal will not put all of the Indonesian government or military on trial, only those guilty of human rights abuse. That's what the East Timor victims want.
But it's not a sentiment shared by President Jose Ramos-Horta. At the nation's 10th anniversary of the referendum, this Nobel Peace Prize laureate urged his people to forget the past.
As an East Timorese and head of state, as someone who lost brothers and a sister, as someone who almost lost his own life, as someone who has crisscrossed built this beautiful island of ours in the past 10 years, and know what the vast majority of the people feel and demand today, I am saying, let's put the past behind. There will be no international tribunal.
The president's words shocked a nation still recovering from the ravages of war. Many, like Elisa de Silva dos Santos, felt betrayed by her leader. Elisa and her family were seeking refuge in the Lequisa church when the militia attacked. Her husband was among the 200 people who died that day.
The sickness in our hearts has not healed yet, and our leaders want us to move on. It shows they have no respect for those who were killed. They say that people want roads and jobs, and not justice. But they did not ask the victims of the violence. No one came here and asked me. Yes, building relations with Indonesia is important, but we cannot forget the past.
Many felt the government added insult to injury when they handed over a prime malicious suspect to the Indonesian authorities on the anniversary of the referendum. Martinez Bere was arrested after crossing into East Timor on August 8th. He is alleged to have been involved in the Suai Church massacre in 1999, in which up to 200 people died. Critics accuse the government of giving in too easily to Indonesia's demands, but others say the handover was to improve relations with East Timor's larger neighbour.
It doesn't necessarily mean that we will forget the past or forgive or forget justice at all, but we're trying to actually find a way where both countries could accept. Who knows, in the future, once Indonesia has been established as a full democracy government, it could be the future generations of Indonesia who will say, look, let's face justice of what we did in the past.
But with reminders of the violence and abuse still present in East Timor today, its people are unable to resolve the feelings of loss. These are the graves of the unidentified bodies from the massacres and killings during the Indonesian occupation. There are at least 70 of them here in Dili alone. But experts say the real numbers of those who were killed or those who disappeared will never really be known, leaving many East Timorese living with ghosts from the past. It's estimated over 100,000 people disappeared or died through murder or starvation during the Indonesian occupation. The cases are too many for the United Nations or East Timor's authorities to investigate. A UN serious crime unit deals exclusively with cases from the 1999 violence.
Between 2000 and 2005, Serious Crimes Unit within the Office of the Prosecutor General of Timor-Leste indicted more than 390 potential perpetrators of those crimes. 87 of them were brought to the court and 84 of them were convicted for the crimes committed in 1999. The rest of the indictees, we believe that they are still at large and mostly in the Republic of Indonesia.
We cross the border into Indonesia's West Timor. Thousands of pro-autonomy Timorese, including several militiamen, fled here after the vote for independence. We met Armindo Suarez, who once headed Indonesia's Golkar party in Dili and is now an Indonesian legislator. He admits atrocities had occurred during the Indonesian occupation, but denies any knowledge of military-backed violence during the referendum.
Yes, there are a lot of people who say the Timorese militia is living here across the border. But let me tell you, the people here are tired of violence. They want to return home. East Timor is not yet stable. There is still a lot of jealousy and blaming each other for the past. The people here are too afraid to go home.
At the Haluan camp in Atambua province, just inside West Timor, we found the forgotten victims of the 1999 referendum. It's estimated some 20,000 people live in about 60 refugee camps along the Indonesian border. The government here no longer recognizes them as displaced people. They have no support and live in dire poverty. Many long to return to East Timor but have lost their homes and lands to new occupants. Others fear reprisals.
What
President Ramos-Horta says is true. We must put the past behind us. But there are a lot of pro-independence people who are still looking for justice for the killings. The governments of East Timor, Indonesia and the UN cannot guarantee our safety if we return. This feeling of injustice will continue through our children. They are growing up in these refugee camps. They hear stories from their parents and grandparents about how they can never go back home. What hope is there for our future?
For now, that future is uncertain. With wounds still unhealed, memories of violence still fresh, it remains to be seen if all Timorese can truly leave the past behind. Coming up after the break, we speak with East Timor's President Jose Ramos-Horta about reconciling with the nation's violent past. Stay with 101 East.